Welcome to the Venusian Womb Codes, Volume 1. These teachings are offered as living threads to support your embodiment, intuition, and integration. Settle your body, soften your breath, and receive what is ready to meet you today. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Venusian Womb Codes, Volume 1. So this is going to be our integration season. And in this season, we are going to be introducing 6 transmissions/codes. The very first one that we will be exploring together is the code of internal worth. So we're going to get right into it, and I'm going to pass it off to Megan to introduce a little bit more about the energy of this season.
So, welcome to the integration chamber. We have really created this particular season, which we are actually calling a volume because it's going to be the intermission between our seasons, to be a recap of very core lessons and teachings we've embodied and learned throughout our creation, facilitation, and just holding of women's circles over the past year and a half, 2 years. So we don't necessarily want you to listen to this and like take notes down or learn something new. It's more of a re-going over everything we've been talking about in more concise point form teachings rather than just like a long conversation that goes on for 40, 50 minutes. So this is not more healing. This isn't for you to fix more about yourself. Really just listen and take it in through the body as you're listening. That's all that's asked of you in this season.
Beautiful. So we're going to go right into a beautiful visual here that really explains a bit more about this code, which is internal worth. And that is ultimately the remembrance here. And as we start exploring the code of internal worth, this is where the work comes in, because this is where we are going to begin to, in that exploration and that openness to meeting parts of ourselves, this is where the shadow can start to creep in. And so we really wanted to define and just give some light to the shadow itself and to the ways that it can actually manifest. So the shadow of internal worth is there's 2 sides to the coin. One of them is the not enoughness. So not feeling that as you are in this very moment is enough, that you have to prove something, that you have to perform, that you have to do more in order to be enough, in order to feel worthy or to feel that you have value to offer to the world just by your presence. And this is where we start noticing that within that shadow, that overcasting of not enoughness, this is where we start noticing the overfunctioning, the overgiving, the people pleasing that comes in, saying yes because you want to be of service and you want to share value, but when you really actually mean no. And this is where the people pleasing comes in when we're not honoring ourselves first and we want to perhaps control how other people are perceiving us because we want to seem more worthy or valuable as human beings. This is also where the perfectionist comes in. A feeling that we need to be at a certain caliber or standard in order to be good enough or be worthy. And this is also how we see in this hustle culture is that a lot of that productivity is really just masking this feeling of not being enough. And there's an illusion of safety that comes in within all of these different behavioral changes that happen when we're living in the shadow. And there's almost this trying to controlling how you feel about yourself through having this external evidence of, look, I did that thing, so that means I am worthy and I'm a good person, or trying to control how you're being perceived by other people. And that's where, again, the people pleaser comes in, the perfectionist comes in. And so the root of the shadow of not enoughness is shame. It's the feeling that as you are is not enough. And there is this threat to belonging that comes in within shame. And really just meeting this part of ourselves with a lot of compassion, recognizing that ultimately the ego and your nervous system is adapting to try to keep you safe. And so making yourself adaptable in these kinds of situations when the shadow is playing out by any of the characteristics that we've listed, that is again your body that's trying to keep you safe in a situation so that you can belong in the greater community that you're in. And so, again, really meeting this part with a lot of compassion and just acceptance of the fact that it's part of being human. And I'm sure that at some point in everyone's life, we are going to experience this part of the shadow of not enoughness. And then there's the other side of the coin, which is the shadow of too muchness. And this is something that a lot of women feel. I mean, I think women naturally can feel both. And that's something that we've heard a lot in women's circles and in reflections and conversations and just through Megan and I's lived experience. And so within the too muchness, this is where we start to notice that there is almost that feeling that being in your full expression, in your authentic expression in the present moment is taking up too much space, is just too much. It's too loud. It's too expressed. It's too deep. Whatever it is that is after the too much, that that is just it's just we can fill that in, that gap, with absolutely anything. And this is ultimately where we start diving into what is that feeling of being too much? And how do we maybe try to mask or dim our light or hide our expression to make others feel more comfortable? And so we notice that in the shrinking, the self silencing, over editing. So, like overthinking how it is that you respond in order to feel that you are acceptable, making things smaller to stay connected, limiting your expression, also limiting your dreams, like limiting your vision for your life and for yourself and your creative path. That's a big way that as women, we tend to play small because we're scared of being too much. And so that root is ultimately this fear of rejection for being intense, emotional, expressive, anything that falls within that too muchness. And so these are two shadows that really come hand in hand when we are learning and embodying what it is to live with internal worth. And so we're going to go into a little bit more about the code of internal worth itself and just in terms of completing this part on the shadow, recognizing that if you're noticing any of these things within yourself, really just meeting yourself with a lot of compassion, a lot of grace, and knowing that this is part of the human experience. This is something that we all have to integrate at some point. And the first step towards that is really just having this loving awareness. Having loving awareness with yourself, a lot of radical honesty in terms of recognizing where you may be living within the shadows. And also, it's not about, I'm never going to experience this shadow ever in my life. I wish that would be great. But again, it's just we're bringing awareness. And then how can we come back to internal worth and come back to this remembrance of truth? Because the truth is that you are innately, internally worthy as you are. And so we're going to dive into that a bit more.
And I'd love to add, just as Milena said, that just because you integrate a particular side of your shadow, you will loop back around to it again, thinking of that spiral. And we see it in our logo, but this is also the spiral path. You will be met with different dimensions of the shadow every time you go. Your journey, your experience deepens in this human experience.
It's a lifelong journey, that's for sure.
Crazy. So, to sum everything up, the teaching of this particular code has everything to do with you are inherently and innately worthy just as you are, just because you exist. There is nothing you need to do, nothing you need to prove, nothing you need to fix, even though the world around you and all those shadows are constantly telling you otherwise. And this lesson that has been learned, or we're still learning, and we've been watching other women learn, is shifting that narrative of your worth is determined conditionally based on how you act, how you perform, what you do in the world, whether that's being a good wife, a good girlfriend, getting good grades, working really hard and making a lot of money, whatever, getting that attention, whatever those conditions are that make your value feel high or that you are a valuable person, switching that internalness to having unconditional worth that comes from yourself. That's not coming from anything you're extracting external yourself. because you are enough just as you are. So, some characteristics of self worth and what that feels like, what that may look like, is truly valuing yourself. And when we're speaking of valuing yourself, I think of getting really clear on what your values are. Which, if you've never thought about that, it's okay to take your time to figure it out because it might be a big question mark question of like, what do I value? What is important to me? Maybe it's faith. Maybe it's integrity. Maybe it's loyalty. Maybe it's trust. Maybe it's health. Whatever it is that is valuable to you, orienting your worth around that because then you're going to be nourishing yourself and noticing how you can get those values met for yourself. Then there's the radical self acceptance, which Milena definitely touched on before, having that compassion for those shadowy parts of yourself. Because it's not by shunning, shaming, or dismissing the shadowy parts that we are able to truly embody our internal worth. We need to accept them, we need to love them, and we need to acknowledge that they are part of us. Because if we don't do that, then we're kind of just looping back into that shamey space of, well, then I need to fix or I need to do something to make this part of myself better or more worthy and valuable. So that radical self-acceptance of all those parts of you is part of claiming your inherent worthiness. Then there's the internal validation, which this is my biggest struggle, is noticing that
Same.
where are the ways that you are seeking your worth externally? And it's not to say that you have to always source internally, but just becoming aware of how are you getting attention in other places? What is giving you that sense of, I feel worthy right now? And just noticing it, just being with it, meeting it. Meeting it is the most, well, not the most important, but really important in this coming back to your own worthiness. And then we have the radical honesty, which kind of goes hand in hand with that radical self acceptance. You got to be honest with yourself of where you are seeking external validation, how you are gaining or where your worth is coming from. And then there's the self respect, respecting yourself, which I also see that kind of linked with the self value and your dignity. So being in alignment with all of it. Um, the medicine in achieving, which I don't even want to use the word achieving, that's the wrong word, but in feeling, in embodying your worthiness, your inner worthiness, your unconditional worth, it's really helpful to be witnessed in your shadow, in all parts of you that don't feel worthy, all parts of you that are seeking validation externally, to be able to speak to it, to be witnessed in it, and not try to perform your way through it, but have other people see you and love you and accept you through it at the same time helps this worthiness kind of come back to self as opposed to be seeking externally. And yeah, being met with that care and presence. And it's also just allowing yourself to be goddamn human because humans are messy. We are messy, messy, messy creatures, and we all are stuck in this system that is constantly trying to make us think we need to fix ourselves in so many different ways. And just knowing that you are human and it is normal, it is okay that you might not feel inherently worthy.
So powerful. And I think it's like you spoke to, it's part of being human. Like all of the transmissions and codes that we're going to be going through, they all cover these different layers of what it is to live this human experience and to learn to tend to our inner world. And I think that in a world where we have so much stimulus and information and possibility externally, it's also recognizing that there is a whole internal world that needs our love and needs our care. And it's really ultimately these are the parts that we've have kind of been casted into the shadow because we didn't feel that it was safe for us to embody these parts of ourself and to still be worthy of love and acceptance and belonging in the world. So that's why the medicine of this code is so deeply relational. It's really about showing who you are authentically and being allowed and loved and received, and also being given more permission. That's the power of circles in my experience has been I am not just loved and accepted as I am authentically, But I also have women being like, give me more, like, give me more of you, bring more of you into this space. Like, I want to witness you in your full expression. And that is so powerful because then you show yourself by doing that and then being received. Is it safe? Is this is actually safe to do? And then it's just kind of that practice, that continuous practice of embodying it more in your daily life. So this brings us into our finale for
Thank
this
you.
transmission. We are so grateful to have you join us for this code. Like we said, this is going to be code 1 out of 6 that we will be sharing in this volume 1 of the Venusian womb codes. Our next transmission is going to be the code of gestation, which, if you have followed us along in season 1, then you know gestation. You also know the amount of resistance that can be met in gestation. And that is why we are going to mm, compact all of that wisdom and lived experience and just the things that we've gathered from our circles and bring it here into a cohesive code that we can masticate and digest and begin to really live and embody. So that will be coming out 2 weeks from today on Venus Day, of course. And we're going to give you 2 weeks to integrate the code that was just presented. And we are sending you so much love for your spiral path as you begin to live and embody the code of internal worth that we went through today. And just a reminder that you are worthy. You are worthy, and that your presence and your energy and your existence in this world is valuable. And really, really believing that in your heart. And so we love you, and we will catch you in 2 weeks.
Thank you for being here and tending these codes with us. If today's transmission stirred something, allow yourself a moment to ground through breath, stillness, or movement. You can return to these episodes whenever you need reorientation or support. Until next time, keep listening to your body and let the womb guide you.